In the beginning of Romans, Paul is talking to the crowd, and he says, "Brothers, my heart's desire and prayer to God for them is that they may be saved. For I bear them witness that they have a zeal for God, but not according to knowledge." And I think this is where many religious people and even sincere Christians go astray. They have plenty of zeal for God, but little knowledge. They'll put Christ follower on their bio, but at the same time, they'll argue you to death about saying Yeshua instead of Jesus if you even want God to hear your prayers. The heathens will say, "There's no hate quite like Christians love." And I gotta say, sometimes I agree with that assessment, because their lack of biblical knowledge highlights their hypocrisy. The same ones who preach love but act with judgment or hate. In Romans 10, Paul talks about people who have a zeal for God, but because of their lack of knowledge, they tried to reach their own righteousness instead of submitting to the righteousness of God. They're straight up ignorant to it. This is also a perfect description of how Paul was before his own conversion. He was a notorious persecutor of Christians and did it all in the name of the law of God. And it's crazy that Paul even found anything at all nice to say about these Jews who persecuted him so mercilessly. He said, at least they have a zeal for God. Paul is showing us that the lack of knowledge makes people seek righteousness in themselves, but that is going to be futile. Plainly put, nobody will be justified by what they do. Romans says, therefore no one will be declared righteous in God's sight by the works of the law. Back then, Israel had a big lack of knowledge, and today Christians do too. But they also have a moral problem. They have not submitted to the righteousness of God. People cannot come to Jesus without the right information about the gospel. But information alone is not enough to save anyone. There must be a radical submission to God by putting away our own superiority. Verse 4 says, "For Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes." So the law ends for the Christian believer in the sense that our obedience to the law is no longer the basis of our relationship with God. We can receive our righteousness by faith, not by obedience to the law or work. This means that no matter how bad of a life you've lived, no matter how sinful you've been, you can still be righteous in the eyes of God. That's amazing. This is based on Jesus and what he did for us, and we don't have to work to get Jesus. We simply believe and receive. So instead of going to great lengths to try to achieve righteousness by being obedient to the law or the 10 Commandments, we can immediately receive righteousness by faith, by trusting in the word of the gospel. So how is this done? Well, very clear instructions are given at the end of Romans 10, 9 through 13. Instructions are as follows: "Because if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart one believes and is justified, and with the mouth one confesses and is saved. For the scripture says, everyone who believes in him will not be put to shame. For there is no distinction